Okay, you're
Okay.
up first, Suzanne, and then when
Yeah.
you're done, just
Say,
I'll hear back
take it
from you then, but I'm
away.
muting until then.
Okay. Okay.
Fine.
Cheers. Okay. So interesting. How do I get stuck in, how do I break through a wall in my studio practice, which for me is outside? So it's really, it's twofold. It's about the way I take pictures. I try to just kind of allow myself to go where my pictures lead me. And often what happens is, since I want to respond to events that I'm seeing, and I'm interested in the water and the sky and color and objects, things that come into view, sometimes I get fixated on certain things. And the series that I made where I just dealt with the color of the sunrise, that happened because, one day I was out there and it showed up. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. So then I had to go out very early, all the time to look for times when the sun would come up in these gradations of color. And it doesn't always do it. And it doesn't do it every season. So then I was like, okay, I love this, but I don't only want to photograph when the sun is doing this. So, what else am I doing? And I'm always looking for ways to push, kind of push and see. And, so I tend to go backwards and forwards, then I'll go back to, oh, here's this one thing that I love, but, maybe something else is coming along. So then I turn that into a series, like, okay, now the sun's really, it's another season. The sun is really red. It's coming up super red. And I'm dealing with the way it's streaking. And I want a different look to those pictures because of that. So, and then the way I came up with doing them vertically was like, I just got tired of making horizontal grids. I was like, what happens if I just kind of break it open? I like having more than one picture. It's kind of important to me. And I just was like, so what if it's like a scroll? What if it just scrolls down and I wanted it to, because I saw something cinematic in them going the other way. There was, it's all about like different moments, putting them together, hopefully to say something bigger than, I thought, well, this is a cinematic way of doing it. And so I kind of answer the second question. I jump in, but I have thoughts going around in my head. Like I have a couple ideas for projects that I want to do. And sometimes that helps me with the one I'm doing, because then I don't want to let go of it because I think, no, I'm not ready to stop it. And I create the themes through the work, but I'm not as thematic as some artists. Because there's a response element. And, sometimes that doesn't serve me in good stead. It means I pull the themes out afterwards, and then I go look for them. But it's kind of like, oh, that's what I was doing with that series of pictures. That's really great. I'm going back. And then so the theme kind of ebbs and flows. And that's not so different than studio practice. You have an idea, you do something, and then you're like, I don't know. And then you're like, oh yeah, that was really good. I'm gonna do 10 more. So that's it.
Okay, very good. Hey, I have a question, but I'm going to save it till the end so we get through everyone. And
Okay.
Then I'm going to get back to you and ask you about the multiples. You mentioned that. So you did good. You did it. It's right on time. You're perfect. Yeah. So Deborah, you're up first and you get to do your 5 minutes.
Oh, I didn't time mine, so just cut me off in the middle if I go long.
Will do.
Let's see. The first question was, how do you break through a wall? Sometimes I return to old work because I have stacks of old prints that at the time I probably thought were finished, but a lot of times I have one work that I didn't feel was ever finished, but I move on because I get attracted to something new. And then I usually find something in there that kind of circles back to what I'm currently working on in a different way, like a different viewpoint of something similar. And I really don't exactly know what that is. I just kind of start searching through it and playing around with smaller studies and collages like I'm doing currently. And then I just look for things to retrieve that connect up for what I'm thinking about. It's usually kind of a variation of things that I've done in the past, although they don't look all like one another. So I don't really strive for that ever. I think the underlying thing that I've always tried to do is just reference things that I'm seeing and reading and writing about, but I don't really put that together. It just kind of comes out as I work. So it kind of relates to the second question, which literally, as Suzanne referenced, I really try hard at this point in my working career to just jump in, which I couldn't do as much when I was younger. But in undergraduate school, I remember taking a drawing class to get some skills practice up in Michigan. And I was like on a hot roll and I was just chugging along. And then summer term hit and I just went bleh. And I remember my professor coming in and I said, Irv, I don't know what to do next. I just don't know what to do. And he said, just get your pencil sharp and sit down and start drawing. And I thought, oh, you mean I can just do it with no plan? That seems way too easy, you know? So ever since then, that comes back to me when I need it. Just kind of jump in and start. And that sometimes is the hardest thing, is just to start. Put pencil to paper, put paint. Like getting the paint out, sometimes I can just procrastinate not getting it out for a long period of time. And it's really stupid because I love paint and I love doing it, but I just kind of play around it for a while. But it seems to have its own timeline, I guess, more or less. But I have to put myself in the studio for it to happen. And the theme question, I really don't work on themes except ones that I've created for myself. In the course of doing a piece, I usually find myself sometimes referencing back to some of my mother forms that appear sort of randomly, but always over time, depending on what's going on in my world and the world at large. So the themes that I work to are my own. And I find that when there is a thematic show that has a name that I think I would respond to, like fragments and, ephemeral, I don't know, kind of broad terms that can be interpreted a lot of ways, then I usually find that I have work that fits that theme. I don't really work to themes very often, although I can. Like the airport work, I was working, the foundation for one of the pieces, the big square piece, Tetra, started 2 years earlier. It was just like a framework and it hung around and I rolled it up, brought it back, just put it away and, and then I pulled it out and I was working on it. And then the elements was the theme. And I thought, oh, that's like a compass. There's the wind, there's the, and I interpret the things broadly. But basically I subscribe to the Thoreau quote that I came across recently about don't despair if you're building castles in the air. Then you just go back, that's where they belong, and then just build the foundation underneath them. So I kind of try to do that. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I don't. But I do focus on trying to, as I'm trying to finish piece, straddling the world between abstraction and representational, because I have a whole older body of work that's very realistic. Sometimes I think I should get that out and I could probably sell it. And the second thing I do is try to always keep the beauty. I got attacked a lot in graduate school for making beautiful work, but I think art should be beautiful and not gross and ugly, unless it's a commentary piece, which is a different thing altogether, to me anyway. And my overarching thing is to always try to merge the elements of art into a pleasing design. Probably my background in teaching a lot. But I like texture. I have favorite elements, of course, but I try to include as many things as I can that suit. But I really just wing it a lot lately. That's really a lot of what's
Okay.
So.
Okay, and I do have a question for you, but again, I'm going to save that to the end. And Stephanie, so, because then we can make sure we all get through with all 3 questions.
Sure.
And then I'm sure everyone else is going to have questions too. So hopefully we'll all have questions. But Stephanie, did you drop your daughter off? Are you there?
I don't see her yet.
Yeah, I don't see Brenda either. But
I'm here. Sorry.
Good. That's okay.
Hey.
Good. Glad you're here. Are you able to answer the questions now? Or are you still with your daughter?
Yes. If you feed me what they are, because I don't have the little piece of paper written with me. So I know the first question, so I can start there. The first question is, what do I do to work through a block, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess I do a few things. I actually am working through a block right now, kind of on the tail end of it. But usually for me, when I start to get a block, it means that whatever body of work I'm working on currently has run its course. I start to feel like it's easy, and I don't like doing it anymore. There's no challenge. And then I start to stress, and then I start to circumlocute, and then I start to overthink. And so for me, the first thing I usually do is journal. I do a lot of like association kind of things. Can y'all hear me still?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, my husband's calling. Okay. I do a lot of association kind of things like word webbing and that kind of thing. To kind of get my head on straight. And kind of at the same time as that, I usually am starting to focus on something either visually or like the theory behind something. It's usually a combination of both. And then I start doubting it because I've overthought it and I think it's boring. And then I have to just force myself to get in the studio and just see what happens. And, you know, sometimes it doesn't work out and sometimes it does, but I kind of try to see it through the end regardless. That's how I work through a block. What's the next question?
Well, you kind of dealt with it a little bit, but the second one is how do you prepare for a new body of work?
Okay. I do a lot of research.
Okay.
I'm a giant nerd, and I do a lot of research. So like this last body of work that I did kind of focused on life and death, and the life cycle. And so I did a lot of research, and I was really interested in ancient Egyptian theories of life and death, and which led me to, I'm always interested for whatever reason in bugs. And so the scarab, and so I did a lot of research on that, which then ended up being research on amulets and the powers of them and blah, 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 blah. So, so that's, I do a lot of research, and I do a lot of like, I do studies kind of like in
home. I do studies in tandem of when I'm painting. I don't really like do a lot of prep work in terms of like colors and compositions. I kind of just dive in, and then if I hate it, I'll paint over it or throw it away or make it into a greeting card or something. What's the next question?
And that is, the last one is, do you like themes? Are you inspired by them? How do you approach each theme?
Where'd you go? Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me? Hello. Now I cannot hear you anymore.
Okay,
there you
how
are.
about now?
Now I can hear you. So the next
What's
question,
the next question?
Do you like themes? Are you inspired by them? And how do you approach the different themes?
So I guess if like life cycles is considered a theme or something like that, something vague, then yes, I like themes, I guess. But if there's a external theme, no, I've never been good at following that. I'm trying to do better at that. But no.
I'm with you on that one, but I'll answer last. So anything else you'd like to add to that, Stephanie? Because you were really quick and you didn't use up near your time.
Oh, I did.
No, that's okay.
It's okay. No, I feel like, oh, I will say this. I was talking to a friend of mine about my little block and how I was going to quit painting, which is what I say every few months. And I was telling her about what I wanted to work on. And I was like, but I feel like it's so nah and this. And she was like, you are crazy. Just do it. She's like, why do you care? And I'm like, you're right. I don't care. So why? I'm like, I only care as it relates to me. Cause she's like, are you worried what people are going to think? And I said, no, I'm much more worried about, you know, and then I'm like sitting there and she's like, what? I'm like, you know, and then she's like, what? And I'm like, I have no idea. I'm like, you're right. I don't know why. I have no idea why I'm hung up on this or what I'm worried about. So, so I'll add that because I think I get, you know, I think myself especially tend to get in my own head, and try to talk myself out of something before I explore it. So I'm trying not to do that either.
Well, good, good, perfect. Your time is just 10 seconds away. So that's great. And then we're gonna thank you very much, Stephanie, and everyone else that's done it. And then now, Candy, we're up to you.
Okay. First question, what do you do when you get stuck? And I can't do anything unless I'm excited and obsessed about some kind of image. And so what I do to get myself going, I walk in nature. I've started taking photographs of things that interest me or just taking photographs at random, not just in nature, but around people or everywhere. And then I go home and study the photographs. I also look at art in museums and online, and until some little piece of something gets me obsessed. So I just keep kind of scanning the horizon, taking pictures, looking at stuff, and then some little thing will get me excited. I get obsessed, like I was obsessed with the light reflections on the water. And then once that happens, then I put it in the back of my head and I kind of chew on it for a while. I keep it there, but I don't move on it. I just let it be there and kind of live with it. And then I go to Hercalia. Have you heard of Hercalia? It's a Sufi thing, but it's the realm of ideas. Everything that exists in the physical world, before it existed here, existed in the world of ideas, the Alam al-Mithal, it's called. So we're all know about it, but we're so busy with this world that we don't pay attention to it. But I'll have this glimmer in the back of my mind, and maybe just before I fall asleep or just as I'm waking up in the morning, something will add to it, like it will start to develop, and that ideas will start coming from Hercalia, you know. And sometimes, well, very often I'll have the piece, but I don't know the title, and like in the middle of the night, a title will come to me. Like last night, I have one that came, Random Destination. So I didn't want to get out of bed and write it down. But if you want to remember something, you take something and put it where it doesn't belong. Like you take a shoe and put it on top of your chest of drawers. And then in the morning, or throw a book on the floor somewhere. And then in the morning, you see that shoe on top of your chest of drawers, and you think, why is there a shoe there? Ah, that's because I wanted to remember Random Destination. And then you'll remember it because something is out of place. And so anyway, it develops organically. Messages from Hercalia come slipping in. Also, I've started taking a nap in the afternoon sometimes. I notice that I'm tired, and before I would just push through it. But now in the afternoon sometimes, not every day, I lie down and I don't really fall asleep, but I rest, and I rest deeper and deeper and deeper. And then after about 20 minutes or 15 minutes, all kinds of ideas come. And they're all related to that seed idea. Like reflections on water or something. So I just save up all these clues and tips, and I kind of let them cook in there. And then little by little, it comes. And as far as a theme is concerned, if there's something I'm obsessed with, you know, like water, I'm obsessed with people now. Because I'm so obsessed with it, I keep chewing on it and it becomes a theme. So I don't consciously create a theme, but it goes there. That's it. How much time did I use up? I can't hear you, Kim.
Unmute me. I couldn't find the unmute. I should have been clear about that. It's external themes, not our own themes, because I think a body of a work is considered a theme, but it's when, are you challenged by a theme? So a couple of you have mentioned that, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah, we all have our, well, we don't all, but some of us have themes that we work within, bodies of work that we work within. But I was wondering about like shows, like when we have our group shows, there's a theme sometimes, not always. And just, you know, that was really more what that theme question was, external themes. So, but you got it, you answered it. So that was very good. And your time is perfect. Everyone is really perfect at 8 seconds. I mean, everyone's perfect at their 5-minute spiel. So very good. Thank you, Candy.
At some point, I'm going to go start cooking dinner, but I'll take my laptop with me. So I can still hear you.
Okay, great. Okay, Cindy, you're up now.
Okay, well, for the first question, I work with a lot of deadlines, so they actually, I can't really afford to get blocked because I have these deadlines looming over me and they involve other people. So everything that I do is collaborative almost. So I have a practice of, or a discipline of making phrases for a project and not being precious about them. I'll edit them usually through video, you know, video, the process, the last run through of every rehearsal I video, and then I'll edit it and edit it and edit it. And I also try to get in the studio and just move. The very beginning of something, if I don't have an idea, if I just go into the studio with some of my favorite music and just start moving, I'll find something that interests me or a phrase. Then the second one, how do I prepare? I realized when I was looking at this that I really have a ritual to prepare. I start off, usually I have a vision or a picture in my mind's eye. It's usually not still, there's movement to it. And then, or sometimes it's an idea that I'm curious about. And then I try to look at it with pen on paper and just do what is that? What is that? Why is this coming up? And then the series of why this, and then you answer that, and then that answer informs the next why. Like, why am I thinking about this? Well, it's because of COVID. Well, what about COVID? And then you keep going down and down and down until you find the core of it. And then I do research. I like to look at words. I like to find a language because I have to talk about my ideas with the dancers. And I also find that it can help to initiate the movement I'm looking for. Then I'll create some improvisations. I'll usually create a phrase and then improvisations. And often that's when I find out that there's something else under the piece that I didn't know was there, or that the piece is really not about what I thought it was. So I do a lot of discovery that way. We talk about it with the dancers. Sometimes it's a series of words. Sometimes it's a task. You know, I give them a task to do. Again, I look at the videos and kind of steal from that, actually. We'll take phrases and then we'll try to reconstruct them. Phrases that they did. And when you work in improvisation, you have a different kind of memory. And it's sometimes really hard to reconstruct things that we create in improvisation. And then
put it to music and figure out how did I get up there? How did I get on his shoulder? So that's fun actually, but maybe sometimes more fun for me than the dancers. And that's always editing and editing, with the videos. And I come in with a laundry list. A lot of times it's for me. I try to let the dancers know, well, this was something that I didn't like that I saw in that phrase. Because it's, it's hard for the dancers sometimes, although they're really open-minded. But, once you get a phrase in your body, if I go, I hate that, I'm throwing it out. I'm asking them to physicalize that quickly. With students, sometimes that's hard. My student work would be totally different because I knew that it was about their experience more than it was about my work. What else? Do I like themes? I make my own up. I feel like sometimes I give myself assignments so I won't be stuck, and making the same dance over and over and over again. And I'm moving less now, so that's interesting. Seems to work out okay, but I think that's because I'm working less with students and more with professional dancers. And I like collaborating with other people because it pushes me out of my little box and inspires me.
That's good. I love the assignments thing. I'm going to borrow that. I mean, I suppose it's just kind of like a theme, but it's a nicer word, I think. Assignment. Give myself an assignment and challenge myself in a way. So I really like that. Very interesting. Everyone's been so interesting. I relate to all of them. Okay, thank you, Cindy. And now, Lucy, you're up.
Okay. So when I get stuck in a project, the thing that seems to work for me best is to step away from it. And like Candy, I like to go outside in nature. So if I'm able to, I will go outside, take a walk, just try not to think about anything and clear out the debris in there. And then go back and take a fresh look at it. And so much of the time I'll find that what I've done so far, I hate. I just hate it. And then I tear it apart and I start putting it back together again. And it's so much better and so much more satisfying. So I guess a lot of it is at the beginning, I'm just throwing things out there and trying to make some sense out of it. Maybe if it's a video, I'm just putting stuff down on a timeline. Oh, okay, there's that looks nice. And then you come back and look at it and be like, oh, that sucks. And then you have to, they say, kill your darlings and get rid of the things that don't work and go back and do it again. Same thing with, writing the script. If I'm writing something, like maybe writing a poem, I find that I like to listen to music. I will write down random words and phrases. I'll write down strings of words that appeal to me just because I like how they sound in my head. And sometimes I'll go back to that and look at that. And oftentimes, like Candy said, I have ideas that come in the middle of the night. I have a poem that I've been working on, and my mind started working on it at 5 a.m. this morning while I was asleep. And I like what that said better than what I had already had written down. So I'm definitely going to use the shoe on the dresser after that. For preparation, if I'm doing a video, writing a script, research, so much research. That's really, really important. Find out as much as I can and prepare. For video, they say, every minute that you spend in pre-production saves you an hour in post-production. So that's important. The poetry that I write is very personal to me, so that's more of something that just comes, and then I just have to write it down and think about it, get away from it, come back, think about it. None of that happens quickly. It always happens over time, because sometimes it's painful and I have to work through that to get it on the page. I think, like Stephanie said, that large themes, things that can really have huge interpretations, are really fun jumping off points. But I think that probably with so many of us, we are happy, especially at this age. I got my theme. I know what I'm talking about and thinking about. So it's how things will work in to that.
Okay, I think that was Deborah. I'm not sure about the broader theme, but I don't. I think that was Deborah.
Yeah,
but I like the broader theme. Yeah.
Too. Yeah. So many people are talking about the same things that I'm feeling.
Yeah, I'm experiencing that too. Your mic is going a little, I don't know what's happening, but it just got a little wonky there. I didn't hear everything you said at the end. And I didn't time you. I forgot to start timer. So I have no idea how much time it's been.
Not muted. I think
That's all right. I'm done.
I think somebody's not muted. I don't think it was Lucy. I think someone's not
muted. Okay. Well, it messed up my volume with you, and I'm sorry about that, Lucy. I didn't catch it all, but anyways, thank you. That was great. And now, Brenda, you are up, and I
had no idea. Can you hear me? Oh, you're muted. Oh. Okay. Well, I had no idea I was going to be even able to be on this call, because I have I'm teaching a Zoom class, meetings with my students, but I had a bunch cancel on the end of this call. So anyways, I'm just
glad you're here.
Thanks. I'm just looking at these questions for the first time. So I think jewelry, or the way I don't really consider that I have like a body of work that it's it's different than painting. And I was an illustrator, so I understand these long themes or things that you're interested in drawing and how you get inspiration. And jewelry it's a little bit different. I think I get my inspiration from, there's so many things to learn in jewelry, techniques that will allow you to express yourself. So I think a lot of it is, what can I do? Like, what are my skill sets, and that allow me to visually represent what I want to. So I think I get inspired by, learning different techniques and things I want to, different stone settings, or experiment with different ways to work with metal and stones and things like that. And from there, I'm like, oh, wow, wouldn't this be cool if I could do this or that, So I get inspired more that way from my internal world, and from teachers. I do a lot of online. I study with one jeweler in Great Britain online, so that's cool. And I've been just inundating myself with playing with a lot of different materials lately, so that I get inspired by. So I don't have time to be stuck. I don't think. It's, plus being stuck is part of it too, the silence, so even if I don't beat myself up if I don't feel like doing something. So that's good, I think, because it allows that space to really be creative. So how do I prepare? I think when I have like a project that I'm, looking at or wanting to do, I do a lot of sketching in my mind first. And I want to be able to see that I can take it all the way through. There's not a good eraser for metal work. So you have to like not screw up, or you're really starting all over again in a lot of ways. So you really don't want to design yourself into like a dead end. You really want to plan your design. I spend a lot of time in the design phase if I'm working on a project that's complicated. And that's the part I love. I love that more than I actually like doing the actual making, which is interesting, I think, from, I don't hate making it. I mean, I find that kind of easy. The complicated and the more interesting part to me is how to engineer it. So then I go into more detailed drawings to make sure that, and I write down my steps. It becomes I think I'm more like an architect than like I don't have time to change things much when I'm in the middle of making something. So it's just different than I think painting when I did watercolor painting and drawing. There's a lot more creativity in the whole from one end to the other. So that's sort of how I prepare. I do like to think about things right before I go to bed. I get a lot of answers at that point. Maybe it's Hercalia. I just didn't know her name. So I need to know how to spell that. So I love that idea. It's kind of like, finally I get a muse. I'm in my husband's muse for so long. I get my own muse now. So that's cool. I like themes a lot. And so that's where Kim and I, we've had this well, one, it's really hard to like, put a big statement of your emotional, whatever it is you're interested in, or into a piece of jewelry. You can do it, but like, it's just not, that's not what jewelry is like known for. But I like the theme because it really does challenge me within that realm of, making pretty objects. And making things that are useful to they have a certain utilitarian purpose. I mean, that's kind of the sort of the definition of craft, but I mean, it's much broader than that. But so I like that challenge. And it does inspire me to do something that I wouldn't normally do. And so that part of it I like. So I think that's it. Did I answer?
Okay. Yeah, you did. At perfect timing. And I like learning Hercolia. I think that's her name. Yeah, Candy's gonna have to spell that for us.
Right.
So we can, so we can all see it. Okay, thank you. There was something you said and I forgot to write it down, Brenda, dang it. But I'm with you. I like the studying, the research more than I like making too. So like you, that's what I like.
Mm.
Okay, next up, Melissa.
Hi, I'm here. Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to see you. I was flipping through the screens earlier so I could see everybody. I'll jump into the themes. So for me, a theme is like a rule I can figure out how to almost break. So I actually like it if somebody tells me what I'm supposed to do, or what I can't do, because then I figure out like, how can I like dance right up to that line or still meet the theme, but kind of also break it. So, the themes for the shows for me are interesting, because I'll just take like elements, for instance, like, oh my God, this is so bad. Is it bad if I say like I make something and then I'm just going to figure out how it can relate to the theme? I mean, it's lucky if I can make a boat when I talk about elements, right? And it's got wheels, so I can claim lots of elements with a boat that has wheels, right? But everything's connected. You know, I love Jung. So everything is connected. And, you know, I'm happy to hear that Lucy's writing a poem. So I got way distracted by that because I was like, oh, I would love to see it. But yeah, for me, like that whole thing with the theme, and that's where I rely on my writing background, is for titles and for my artist statement. So I hate artist statements, and normally I think they're just kind of bullshit. So because nobody I know sits down typically to think, I'm going to make a body of work that represents, no, of course not. You're working on something, and all of the things within you are what's coming out, you know, and we're human, and so they're all universal themes. Every one of my pieces is about loss. So I don't care what it's supposed to be about. You can just know I'm probably lying. It's all about loss and longing. So, you know, for whatever reason, it's still the old poet heart that I have. So yeah, I look at themes like you're telling me exactly what the rules are, so I can figure out how to break them in a polite way that's still acceptable. For blocks, you know, you either just kick through the wall or you figure out how to walk around it. So I usually just keep pushing right on through. And I definitely, I have another friend that I've worked on art with. We used to, you know, every Sunday she'd come over and we would just kind of work on things. And she would be like, I hate this piece. I'm like, just keep going because you'll love it again. You know, so you don't give up on the piece. And it may become something entirely different. And that's probably what you're uncomfortable with. There's probably something getting ready to shift or change inside you. And, you know, that's, you're pushing something. And if you stick with it, you'll end up pushing through to something else. That's what's always happened with me. Then the piece is nothing like I thought it was going to be. And I usually loved it even more. So, you know, I don't give up on too many things. So I push them to some form of completion. You know, I don't always know when to stop. That's kind of a hard thing to know. And I appreciate, I don't remember, I think it was Cindy who said something about things being precious, which is something I remember 100%, you know, as a poet, like, oh, it's too precious, you know, and it could be like a great line, but it's too precious, you can't use it. So, you know, that's my struggle currently in the pieces that I work on now, because they can be kind of cute, and that's such a struggle for me because I'm not a cute person. So I'm hoping it's striking like some other emotion in people, but I guess I can't worry about it a whole lot. So, you know, I'm going to show you guys this. You see this plate?
Yeah.
It says inappropriate attachment to objects. My sister-in-law got me this, and I'm going to say, like, it's 100%. It's in the studio. It's, that's all over a pair of pink baby shoes, but that's a story for another time. I don't have any children. How did I get these pink baby shoes? We don't know, but I'm scared to death to throw them away. So that's like my little obsession. It works as an assemblage artist because it's an excuse, you know, to keep things. So I'm fascinated by everything. I love nature in the sense of like the little secret things that happen that we can't see right now. We have a mud dauber living in a light on our table, and we're very still every time she comes by to bring a caterpillar to stuff into the holes, because we're like consumed by this whole process. So I know something's coming out of that. I'm watching her build these holes and stuff these holes, and I'm like, she has been alive for 7 days that I know of, flying how many distance, like I have no clue the distance. She survived storms, birds, and she's still persevering, you know? And so I feel like, well, I can too, but I'm watching her build this whole little town, mud dauber babies in there, and I know something's brewing for me, and I feel like I'm getting to see this kind of secret process. She flies up to us and looks in our face and then flies in, so I feel like I'm in a secret club. I'm not on medication, so Anyway, that's just what happens in my brain. I see that, and it's like this furtive little nest and this whole secret thing that we don't see, and I'm just fascinated by it. And typically, that's how I end up starting something. That's what I'm thinking about. So.
Cool. That was great, Melissa. Thank you. I love that. It really flies up to your face. I mean, I think that would make me nervous.
Well, you know, I've read they're not very aggressive, so we just kind of were like, oh, here she comes, and we're just like, we have the dogs like leashes, and we're just sitting like, okay, and she'll like check us out. I'm like, by this point, come on, we're not doing anything. But
okay.
Got it.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, Jenny, you're up next.
Okay. Well, I guess starting with number 1, how do I break through a wall? Almost anybody in this group should know the answer to that. I talk it to death. I talk to one of you over and over and over until I'm completely satisfied that I've talked about it. And then I go back into my own head and procrastinate until I just feel compelled to create it. That's really what happens to me. I think as a photographer, maybe it's a little different because, well, I don't know, everybody has their process. But obviously for me, the image is always first. But the image is always first. The light drives the image. I'm always looking for the light. I'll get up in the morning, be in my pajamas, and see some light in the backyard, and I'll go outside and shoot before I've had coffee in my underwear. And but the light and the image always drive everything. But I do tend to remunerate on something for a while before I can decide what it matters, how it matters to me in terms of doing the work. And maybe that relates to themes, because I can speak to, for me, it's always the emotional state that I was in when I created the work. What does that work mean to me in my emotional state? With Erosion, it was very much about loss, as Melissa said. I think a lot of my work is about loss and time passing and that sort of thing. So with Erosion, I really looked at loss. I'm very interested in quotes now. All of my projects have a quote with an artist statement. And I actually, yesterday, I had to turn in an artist statement to a show that I just got into. And it was kind of a big show for me. And I sent the artist statement to Lucy, who of course has to proof everything, after listening to me talk about it first. But, and I said, I really wish I could just send the quote. I don't even want to write an artist statement, but I wrote the shortest one I ever wrote. And it was just barely, it was a quote and about 3 sentences. So I'm really liking that I'm moving in that direction. But with Erosion, I found a quote about loss, and that really drove my whole experience of the work. And I think it really makes people's responses to my work better when I have a real understanding of what my own emotional response is behind the work. The same thing with Elements. Obviously, water was an easy choice for me with Elements, but it was, you know, the title's 90 seconds because the work was taken in 90 seconds. And so, you know, it's also, again, about an emotional response. So, you know, emotion is a big deal of it. I tend to use a thesaurus a lot. If I'm stuck or if I'm working on a particular project and I'm beginning to think about what it means to me, with Erosion, I researched erosion. And so sometimes once I begin to look at the thesaurus, I'll do some research. I don't start with research. The image always drives the beginning of the project, always. Lately, I've had 2 pieces in shows with the title called Artificial Light. So that's beginning to really interest me as a larger project, which could just become from work that already exists for me. So that's kind of how that works. And themes for me is very similar to what I talked about with the titles and the artist statements. I don't like a theme like dragons, but if it's like fractured spaces, for me was perfect. I felt like it gave the whole group a lot of room to do. Elements for me was much more, just immediately felt like literal. So I can be really literal, but with something like fractured spaces, or, I mean, over the course of this time, I've mostly been entering shows that are in other galleries, and they always have a theme, which I consider a title more than a theme, because they really encourage you to have this completely open interpretation. Like, it could be portal, which to us, some people might mean a door, and it'll be like a mirror in a corner of an empty lot, you know? So they're really looking for that broad interpretation. And because that's pretty much what was available to me over this time, I've been doing a lot of that. And so I do think it's sort of opened my ideas of what a theme can be. But I would say my daughter gave me I'm mixing it up now. My daughter gave me this little book, Artist Notes. So if I get stuck, I'll go in there and write something. I kind of treasure this. I always go back and look at my work, relook at all, older work and all that kind of, and I think the big thing for me is it's always emotional state that drives everything. That's the starting point and the ending point, both.
I can see that. Perfect timing. You guys are so good at 5 minutes. I think that we have an internal clock. Everyone has exactly been just about exactly 5 minutes. So I don't know how, I want whatever Stephanie's cooking. That's first of all, I would like to say. It looks yummy, Stephanie. And then I'm just going to quickly answer the questions. I'm amazed at how much, and I guess I shouldn't be amazed, how much we all have some of the same processes. Like, I couldn't start a piece without researching it. I am an absolute research nerd, but the inspiration always starts from an idea I get. But when I get stuck, I live in my studio. I do everything in my studio, and I know that the inspiration will come. And as with, what's her name, Candy? Hercolia. I know Hercolia has been visiting me because she's given me a lot of ideas, and I get them in the morning. I get them when I wake up. I get them when I take a nap. So I might put a bed in my studio and start taking a studio nap to get inspired. So if I ever get stuck, but so for me, when I break through, when I don't get stuck often, but when I do, and like I did, and what sticks me are the damn themes. An external theme, I can now say, because I have a ton of my own themes. But if I get stuck, I go right to the thesaurus. I mean, I can't live without that. It's my favorite book. And I just Google all the stuff I want to know, and it inspires me as I go. And so I am very geeky when I prepare for a new body of work. But after I've done all the research, I stop what I'm doing and I clean my studio. That is the most important task after I figured out what I'm going to do, is I clean my studio, because it's such a disaster. And then on the themes, no, I don't like external themes, but they do, because they take me off on separate tangents. But I do like the challenge once in a while to get a damn theme, external theme, and then try and force myself to do it. I'm typically never happy with how it turns out, but I still think it's a good practice. It's a good thing to force myself into a different direction, even though I might not continue it after that. So, but so that's it. And thank you guys for answering all the questions.